Turkey's history spans millennia, bridging Europe and Asia as a crossroads of civilizations. The earliest inhabitants of Anatolia, the peninsula that forms modern Turkey's heartland, included the Hittites, who established one of the world's first great empires around 1600 BCE. They dominated the region for centuries, developing advanced metallurgy and legal systems before mysteriously collapsing around 1200 BCE. Following the Hittite decline, various peoples including Phrygians, Lydians and Greeks established settlements across Anatolia. The Lydians are credited with inventing coinage around 650 BCE, while Greek city-states flourished along the western coast. The Persian Empire conquered much of the region in the 6th century BCE, incorporating Anatolia into their vast domain until Alexander the Great's conquests in 334 BCE brought Hellenistic influence. After Alexander's death, his empire fragmented, and various Hellenistic kingdoms controlled Anatolia until Roman expansion brought the region under Roman rule by 133 BCE. Under Roman administration, Anatolia prospered as a center of trade and culture. The Apostle Paul spread Christianity throughout the region, establishing many of the early Christian communities mentioned in the New Testament. When the Roman Empire split in 395 CE, Anatolia became part of the Byzantine Empire, with Constantinople, modern Istanbul, serving as its capital. The Byzantines ruled for over 1,000 years, defending against various invaders, while preserving Greek and Roman traditions alongside Christianity. The empire reached its zenith under Justinian I in the 6th century, but gradually declined due to constant warfare with Arabs, Bulgars, and later Turkish tribes. Turkish tribes began migrating westward from Central Asia in the 10th century, initially serving as mercenaries for various Muslim rulers. The Seljuk Turks emerged as a dominant force, establishing the Great Seljuk Empire in 1037 and later the Sultanate of Rum in Anatolia, after defeating the Byzantines at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. The Seljuks brought Islamic culture and architecture to Anatolia, creating a synthesis of Turkish, Persian, and Islamic traditions. The Mongol invasions of the 13th century weakened Seljuk power, leading to the emergence of numerous small Turkish principalities called beyliks. Among these, the Ottoman beylik, founded by Osman II around 1299, would eventually dominate. The Ottomans expanded rapidly, capturing Bursa in 1326 and crossing into Europe, taking Adrianople in 1362 and eventually conquering Constantinople in 1453 under Mehmed II, ending the Byzantine Empire forever. The Ottoman Empire reached its golden age in the 16th century under Suleiman the Magnificent, controlling territories from Hungary to Yemen and from Algeria to Iraq. The empire was renowned for its military prowess, administrative efficiency, and cultural achievements. The Ottomans developed a unique system of government that incorporated diverse populations while maintaining Islamic law as the foundation of the state. However, by the 17th century, the empire began experiencing gradual decline due to military defeats, economic problems, and administrative corruption. The failed siege of Vienna in 1683 marked the beginning of territorial losses in Europe. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, the Ottoman Empire was increasingly called the sick man of Europe, as it lost territory to rising European powers and faced internal rebellions. The 19th century brought attempts at modernization through the Tanzimat reforms, which aimed to centralize administration, improve education, and grant equal rights to all subjects regardless of religion. Despite these efforts, the empire continued to fragment, losing Greece, Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria to independence movements, while Egypt and Tunisia became virtually autonomous. World War I proved catastrophic for the Ottoman Empire. Initially remaining neutral, the Ottomans eventually joined the Central Powers in 1914. The war brought devastating defeats, including the failed Gallipoli campaign and the Arab revolt supported by Britain. The Armenian genocide occurred during this period, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians through deportations and massacres. The empire's defeat in 1918 led to occupation by Allied forces and the harsh Treaty of Sèvres in 1920, which would have partitioned most of Turkey among European powers and created an independent Armenia and Kurdistan. This sparked the Turkish War of Independence led by Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk, who organized resistance against foreign occupation and the weak Ottoman government. Ataturk's forces successfully fought against Greek, Armenian, French, and Italian forces, ultimately forcing the Allies to negotiate the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923, which recognized Turkish sovereignty over most of Anatolia and eastern Thrace. On October 29, 1923, the Republic of Turkey was proclaimed with Ataturk as its first president. Ataturk embarked on radical reforms to modernize Turkey, abolishing the caliphate, adopting the Latin alphabet, granting women equal rights, separating religion from state affairs, and promoting Turkish nationalism. These reforms, known as Kemalism, transformed Turkey from a theocratic empire into a secular republic modeled on Western democratic principles. Turkey remained neutral during most of World War II, finally joining the Allies in 1945. The post-war period saw Turkey's alignment with the West, joining NATO in 1952 and beginning the long process of European integration. However, domestic politics remained turbulent, with military coups in 1960, 1971, and 1980 disrupting democratic governance. The 1980s brought economic liberalization under Turgut Özal, who opened Turkey's economy to global markets and began EU accession negotiations. The 1990s were marked by political instability, economic crises, and the ongoing conflict with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, which sought independence for Turkey's Kurdish minority. The Justice and Development Party, AKP, came to power in 2002 under Recep Tayyip Erdogan, initially pursuing pro-European policies and economic reforms. However, Erdogan's rule has become increasingly authoritarian, especially after a failed military coup in 2016, leading to widespread purges and restrictions on civil liberties. The early years of the Turkish Republic under Ataturk were marked by comprehensive social engineering aimed at creating a modern nation-state. The Hat Law of 1925 banned traditional Ottoman headwear in favor of Western-style hats, symbolizing the break with the past. The adoption of surnames in 1934 further modernized Turkish society, with Mustafa Kemal taking the surname Ataturk, meaning father of the Turks. Women gained the right to vote and stand for election in 1934, making Turkey one of the first countries to grant such rights. Ataturk's death in 1938 marked the end of an era, with İsmet İnönü becoming president and maintaining the secular nationalist ideology while steering Turkey through World War II. The transition to multi-party democracy began in 1946, leading to the Democrat Party's victory in 1950 under Adnan Menderes, who shifted toward more conservative policies and closer ties with the United States during the Cold War. The Cold War period saw Turkey become a crucial NATO ally, hosting American nuclear missiles and serving as a bulwark against Soviet expansion. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 directly involved Turkey, as the resolution included the secret removal of Jupiter missiles from Turkish soil. This period also witnessed significant American aid through the Marshall Plan, helping rebuild Turkey's infrastructure and economy. The 1960 military coup, Turkey's first successful overthrow of civilian government, reflected the military's role as guardian of Kemalist principles. The coup leaders executed Prime Minister Menderes and enacted a new constitution in 1961 that strengthened civil liberties, but also institutionalized the military's political influence through the National Security Council. The 1960s and 1970s were characterized by political polarization, economic instability, and violent clashes between leftist and rightist groups. The 1971 military intervention, known as the coup by memorandum, forced the resignation of the government without direct military rule. This period saw the rise of Kurdish political consciousness and the emergence of various revolutionary movements inspired by global leftist ideologies. The 1980 military coup led by General Kenan Evren was the most severe intervention in Turkish democratic history. The military banned all political parties, arrested thousands of political activists, and implemented a new constitution in 1982 that significantly strengthened executive power while restricting civil liberties. The coup's aftermath saw the depoliticization of Turkish society and the implementation of neoliberal economic policies. The return to civilian rule in 1983 under Turgut Özal marked a new phase in Turkish development. Özal's economic liberalization policies, known as the January 24th decisions, transformed Turkey from a closed, state-controlled economy to a market-oriented one integrated with global markets. This period saw rapid industrialization, urbanization, and the emergence of a new entrepreneurial class, particularly from conservative Anatolian cities. The Kurdish question became increasingly prominent during the 1980s and 1990s, with the PKK's armed insurgency beginning in 1984. The conflict has claimed over 40,000 lives and led to the displacement of millions of Kurdish civilians. The capture of PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan in 1999 marked a turning point, leading to periodic ceasefires and peace processes, though the conflict has never been fully resolved. Turkey's relationship with the European Union has been complex and often frustrating. While Turkey became an associate member of the European Economic Community in 1963, its full membership application in 1987 was met with skepticism due to concerns about human rights, the Cyprus issue, and Turkey's size and predominantly Muslim population. The EU finally granted candidate status in 1999, and accession negotiations began in 2005, but progress has been slow and controversial. The rise of political Islam in Turkey gained momentum during the 1990s with the Welfare Party's success under Necmettin Erbakan, who became prime minister in 1996. However, the military's postmodern coup of 1997 forced Erbakan's resignation and led to the closure of his party, demonstrating the secular establishment's continued power. The devastating earthquakes of 1999 in northwestern Turkey, which killed over 17,000 people, exposed widespread corruption in the construction industry and inadequate disaster preparedness. The disaster led to closer cooperation with Greece in rescue efforts, contributing to improved bilateral relations in both countries' EU candidacy processes. The AKP's rise to power in 2002 marked a watershed moment in Turkish politics. Initially presenting itself as a conservative democratic party committed to EU membership and economic development, the AKP under Erdogan implemented significant reforms in its early years, including the abolition of the death penalty, expanded cultural rights for Kurds, and reduced the military's political influence. The 2003 Iraq War created tensions with the United States when Turkey's parliament refused to allow American troops to use Turkish territory for the invasion. This decision reflected growing anti-American sentiment and Turkey's concerns about Iraqi Kurdish autonomy's potential impact on its own Kurdish population. Economic growth during the AKP's early years was impressive, with GDP per capita tripling between 2002 and 2012. Major infrastructure projects, including new airports, highways, and the Marmaray Tunnel connecting Europe and Asia under the Bosphorus, transformed Turkey's landscape. The construction boom created jobs, but also led to environmental concerns and urban gentrification. The 2013 Gezi Park protests marked a turning point in Erdogan's rule, beginning as environmental demonstrations against the redevelopment of a central Istanbul park, but evolving into nationwide protests against increasing authoritarianism. The government's harsh response, including the use of tear gas and water cannons, drew international criticism and polarized Turkish society. The failed coup attempt of July 15, 2016, profoundly impacted Turkey's trajectory. The putsch, allegedly organized by followers of exiled cleric Fethullah Gulen, was defeated by popular resistance and loyal military units. However, the aftermath saw massive purges affecting over 100,000 public sector employees, including teachers, judges, police officers, and military personnel, fundamentally altering Turkey's institutional landscape. The introduction of the presidential system in 2018, following a controversial referendum, concentrated unprecedented power in Erdogan's hands, effectively ending Turkey's parliamentary system. Critics argued this change undermined democratic checks and balances, while supporters claimed it would provide political stability and efficient governance. Turkey's foreign policy has become increasingly assertive under Erdogan, often diverging from traditional Western allies. Military interventions in Syria, Libya, and Nagorno-Karabakh have expanded Turkey's regional influence but strained relationships with the EU, Russia, and Arab states. The acquisition of Russian S-400 missile systems led to Turkey's suspension from the F-35 fighter jet program and sanctions from the United States. The Syrian refugee crisis has profoundly impacted Turkey, which hosts nearly 4 million Syrian refugees, the largest refugee population worldwide. Initially welcomed as temporary guests, the prolonged presence of refugees has created social tensions, economic burdens, and political challenges, influencing electoral outcomes and foreign policy decisions. Turkey's relationship with Israel has experienced significant fluctuations, from close military and economic cooperation in the 1990s to severe tensions following the 2010 Mavi Marmara incident and Israel's conflicts with Gaza. Recent years have seen attempts at reconciliation driven by shared regional security concerns and economic interests. The discovery of significant natural gas reserves in the Black Sea has raised hopes for energy independence and economic benefits. However, Turkey's drilling activities in the eastern Mediterranean have created tensions with Greece, Cyprus, and the EU, leading to sanctions and diplomatic crises. Contemporary Turkey faces numerous challenges, including economic instability with high inflation and currency devaluation, political polarization, press freedom concerns, and demographic changes with an aging population and urbanization pressures. The country's strategic location continues to make it a crucial player in regional conflicts, migration routes, and energy corridors. Turkey's relationship with NATO has become increasingly complex, with disputes over Syria policy, arms purchases from Russia, and human rights concerns creating friction with alliance partners. Despite these tensions, Turkey's strategic importance as NATO's second-largest military and guardian of crucial shipping lanes ensures its continued membership. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly impacted Turkey's economy and society, highlighting both the strengths and weaknesses of the healthcare system, while exacerbating existing economic vulnerabilities. The government's response included lockdowns, economic support packages, and an extensive vaccination campaign. Today, Turkey remains a significant regional power with a complex identity, balancing its European aspirations with its Middle Eastern geography, secular constitution with Islamic heritage, and democratic institutions with authoritarian tendencies. The country continues to play a crucial role in regional conflicts, migration issues, and the ongoing tensions between East and West that have defined its history for centuries. As Turkey approaches its centennial in 2023, it faces the challenge of reconciling its diverse historical legacy with the demands of modern democratic governance and international integration. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your friends. I also create videos on the history of different countries and empires, so check out those too.